The twin suns of Vion 5 were setting when Commander Rylan Ward stepped off the shuttle ramp. The air smelled faintly metallic, carrying the distant hum of shield generators. He hadn't returned to this world in 8 long years, not since the battle that had earned him a medal, nightmares, and the silent withdrawal of someone he could never forget. He knew today would be different. He knew someone was waiting for him. But he did not expect her. Not the Queen. Not the legend. Not the woman whose life he had saved. And certainly not the one who disappeared from his life afterward. Rylan exhaled slowly as he crossed the landing bay. He'd been summoned, no explanation, no diplomatic brief, just a sealed message from the Vion royal court stamped with a symbol he remembered, a silver crest shaped like 2 wings folded protectively. The Queen's crest. He pressed on, each step echoing in the vast corridor of obsidian stone and pulsing blue crystals. Vion architecture always looked alive, like the walls themselves breathed and waited. Rylan's escort, a silent Vion guard clad in midnight armor, stopped before enormous doors etched with swirling runes. "You will enter alone, human," the guard said. "She awaits." Rylan nodded. He did not know what she looked like now. He wasn't even sure how to speak to her. But he remembered every detail of their final moment 8 years ago, the battlefield smoke, her collapsed form in his arms, the way her luminous eyes stared at him as if trying to memorize his soul. He had never forgotten her. And apparently, she had not forgotten him either. The doors opened. The Queen who remembered. The throne chamber glowed in hues of violet and soft silver. It was quiet, empty except for one figure standing in the center, not sitting on her throne, not surrounded by advisors or guards. She stood alone. Tall. Majestic. Radiant. Her dark, shimmering skin reflected starlight, and small bioluminescent patterns glowed along her arms. Her white hair flowed like liquid light, braided behind her shoulders. And those eyes, those unforgettable, scar-like silver eyes, rested on him instantly. "Rylan Ward," she whispered, as if testing the sound of his name again after too many years. He froze. She took a slow step toward him. "Do you," she breathed, "remember me, human?" Her voice was soft but carried 1,000 memories. Rylan swallowed hard. How could he possibly forget? "You were the lieutenant I carried off the battlefield," he said. "The one who refused to die." The Queen's lips curved, part smile, part sorrow. "I was more than that," she said quietly. "Though you did not know." "I didn't need to," he replied. Their eyes locked, and for a long, fragile moment, neither moved. Then she spoke again, stronger now, more sure. "I am Queen Seraphis Varin, ruler of the Solaris Dominion, but to you, I will always be the warrior you saved." She hesitated. "Now, at last, I may speak the truth you were denied." Rylan felt his chest tighten. He'd wondered for years why she vanished after recovering. Why she hadn't contacted him. Why she was whisked away under royal guard the moment she regained consciousness. Why the last thing she ever said to him was, "Do not follow me." She motioned him closer. And though she was a queen, though she commanded fleets and held treaties in her hands, her voice trembled as she said, "I never forgot you. Not the battle. Not your face. Not the way you held me when my world was crumbling." A strange warmth washed through Rylan, unexpected and sharp. Seraphis continued. "You were the first human to break our laws, Rylan Ward." She stepped closer. "You touched your bare skin against mine. That act alone could have had you executed. And yet, you protected me with everything you had." Rylan remembered. He remembered the explosion, the collapsing terrain, the ambush. He remembered finding her pinned beneath debris, bleeding strange silver blood. He remembered choosing to stay with her instead of retreating. "I would have done it for anyone," he said. Her gaze softened. "That is why it mattered," she whispered. The Confession of a Queen. Seraphis turned and gestured for him to follow. They walked toward a balcony overlooking the sprawling, bioluminescent capital city. Flying crafts drifted across the skyline like glowing insects. "For 8 years," she said, "I have ruled with strength, diplomacy, and caution. But every night, I remembered you. The human who risked everything. You could have contacted me," Rylan said quietly. She looked down. "I was forbidden." "By who?" "By the elders. They feared complications." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "Am I a complication?" Seraphis inhaled sharply, her cheeks tinted with faint purple, her species equivalent of a blush. "You are a complication I chose to summon," she admitted. "Even if it risks everything again." He turned to face her fully. "Why now?" She finally looked up, her voice lower, more vulnerable than he ever expected from a queen. "Because 8 years ago, you saved my life. But you also stole something without meaning to." "Stole?" Rylan blinked. "What does that mean?" Seraphis stepped closer until they were only inches apart. "In my culture," she whispered, "life debt is sacred. When someone saves another at the cost of their own safety, a bond is formed. A bond that cannot be ignored." Rylan went still. "You're saying you owe me?" "No," she said softly. "I am saying we are bound. By ancient law. By fate. By what happened that day." He exhaled. "So that's why you called me here?" Seraphis shook her head. "No. I called you here because I missed you." His heart nearly stopped. Her voice trembled. "I thought time would make me forget. But you remained a shadow in my mind. A warmth I could not erase. A human who saw me as a woman bleeding on the battlefield, not a queen." "Seraphis," he murmured. She lifted her hand, then hesitated, unsure if touching him was welcome. He took her hand himself. Her breath caught. Her glowing patterns flared brighter. And she whispered, "You do remember me." The truth behind the summons. But the moment lingered only briefly. Seraphis pulled her hand back as if remembering something heavy. "There is more you must know," she said. "More than memories. More than bonds." Rylan braced himself. The Dominion is at war again. A silent war. A shadow war. She looked into the horizon. A faction calling themselves the Red Maw hunts me and hunts any who have touched me. Rylan stiffened. "Because I saved you. Because they believe a queen should never owe a life debt to a human," she replied bitterly. "They see you as a threat to their political power. So calling me here put us both in danger." "Yes," she admitted. "But keeping you away was tearing at me." Her honesty struck him like a physical blow. "So what now?" Seraphis faced him fully. "I summoned you to ask whether the bond is still yours to accept, or whether you wish me to cut it and forget everything." Rylan stared at her. Forget? Forget the woman he carried out of fire? Forget her eyes, her trembling hand on his cheek as she slipped into unconsciousness? Forget the ache he carried in his chest for 8 years? Not possible. "Seraphis," he said slowly, "what happens if I accept the bond?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You will stand beside me. As protector. As confidant. As equal. Not as a servant of the Dominion, but as someone the Queen has chosen. And if I refuse?" She lowered her gaze. "I will order the elders to dissolve the bond. You will forget me within days. The memories will fade from your mind. Your heart will heal, even if mine does not." Rylan felt heat rush through him, anger, disbelief, something deeper. "You'd let them erase me from your life?" Seraphis clenched her fists. "I would rather lose memories than lose you to the Red Maw's blades." He stepped toward her. "You don't get to sacrifice your heart so easily." She looked up sharply. "You sound as though you have already chosen." Rylan exhaled slowly. I did. 8 years ago. Seraphis froze. A single breath escaped her lips, a breath filled with relief she had carried too long. The moment she never expected. There was no more distance between them. Only the soft hum of evening energy fields, the warm breeze, and the rising glow of her bioluminescent markings. Seraphis whispered, "Say it." Rylan lifted a hand, brushing his knuckles lightly over her cheek. "I'm not letting you go again," he said. "Not now. Not ever." Her eyes trembled. Her voice nearly broke. "Rylan." She rested her forehead against his, a gesture sacred among her kind. "I never believed you would choose me," she whispered. "You never asked," he replied gently. Her eyes shimmered not with tears, but with the luminous light of her species' deepest emotion. "And now, you have. The threat returns." But the moment shattered as a sharp alarm echoed through the palace. Seraphis jerked back. "No. What is it?" Rylan demanded, already moving beside her. "The Red Maw has infiltrated the palace shields," she said. "They come for me and you." Rylan grimaced. Great timing. Seraphis' expression darkened, becoming the warrior he remembered. "We must move. Now." They sprinted through the corridors as explosions rumbled beneath them. Red-armored infiltrators burst through entryways, firing plasma shots. Rylan grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and fired back, covering Seraphis as she unleashed arcs of violet energy from her hands. Her voice cut through the chaos. "Rylan, stay at my side. You think I'd go anywhere else?" Together they pushed through halls of smoke and fire, battling through enemies. When they reached the inner sanctum, Seraphis slammed her palm on a crystal panel. A protective barrier flared around them. For a moment, they stood panting, side by side. She looked at him, really looked. "You still protect me," she said softly. "You still fight like a storm," he replied. "And you still smile in danger," she breathed. "Bad habit." She shook her head, a tiny smile forming. "It is the habit that saved my life." Aftermath and a new beginning. By dawn, the Red Maw invaders were defeated. Royal guards filled the corridors, sealing breaches and treating the wounded. Seraphis and Rylan stood on the balcony once more, this time with sunlight bathing the kingdom. "You could have run," she said quietly. "You could have left me to fight alone." "Never." She turned to him fully. "Then hear my words, Rylan Ward," she said, her voice steady and ceremonial yet tender. "The bond of life is now the bond of choice. If you accept it, you stand with me not as a servant, not as a soldier, but as the person I trust above all." Rylan stepped closer. "And if I say yes?" Her markings glowed warmly. "Then the queen who remembered you will no longer remember alone." He lifted her hand and pressed it gently to his chest. "Then yes," he said. "I accept." A radiant light bloomed where their hands touched, ancient Vayon magic binding two lives by will, not accident. Seraphis inhaled sharply as the bond sealed. "It is done," she whispered. "Feels warm," he said. "That is me," she replied softly. "My spirit, touching yours." Rylan smiled. "So, what does this bond make us?" Seraphis met his gaze. "It makes us partners," she said. "Allies. Equals." Her voice lowered. "And perhaps, in time, more." Rylan's chest tightened in the best possible way. "I think," he murmured, "that time begins now." Seraphis smiled, truly smiled, for the first time since he met her. "Yes," she whispered. "Now." The suns rose higher. The city awakened. And the human and the queen stood together, no longer separated by distance, law, or fear. Just two souls. Who remembered. The same moment. The same way. For 8 years. And finally, they no longer remembered alone.